And we're back. Hopefully, folks can hear me. We're testing out this new format, so we'll see how it goes. It's just, yeah, I have this new setup, so I'm actually excited about it. Drop a comment below. Let me know if you enjoy it. And let's jump in. I think you guys saw. I think you guys saw the title, but we're just hopping on here and talking about some stuff that I'm seeing over the last week. The first one we want to talk about is brain rot. I don't know if anyone's talking about that, but I was doing some research, as I often do, because honestly, I just want to know what's happening in the industry. And the idea is that there is a technical term for it. So let's put that out there, right? And for some people, it says it's a term describing mental exhaustion from excessive digital consumption. For a lot of people, it's scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on Instagram, and I can't imagine scrolling on LinkedIn as well. So brain rot is anything. So why should we care? Why am I thinking about it? I do think that we've accelerated as a people so fast, right? Like there's so much happening. There's so many news sources. There's so much happening that like it's hard to keep up. And for a lot of us who haven't put guardrails around us, one of the things that I was thinking through is that oftentimes for a lot of people, it is privilege to be able to shut off for a whole weekend or to not be bombarded by what's happening out in the news. I don't think that at any point in time is going to slow down, right? And so the idea of brain rot is not going to go away. I think it's always been their new format. I remember in the 90s, my parents would be like, oh, don't watch that much TV. And wow, like, I'd be curious, like, would you rather your kid watch 3 hours of TV or 3 hours on TikTok or Snapchat or wherever? That's actually an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what y'all think about brain rot, how you're dealing with that, not only in yourselves, but in folks around you. Let me know what you think. Just testing this here. Go. Cool. Yeah. So excited for that. One of the other things I want to talk about is I've seen a couple posts around people not getting the management and the development that they need. And it's something I'm curious about of just like the development. Like in my lifetime, which is not that great, I'm about to be 35, is a lot of people will leave companies because they don't feel like they're growing. And it's a tricky one. And I've often said, whose responsibility should it be to grow you, right? And I think it's is it the responsibility of the company to grow you and develop me, or is it your responsibility? And I think it's been an interesting thing. Like oftentimes we put too much on our companies. Just like I think it's also something we do in relationships as well. It's like, are we expecting too much from this entity, or what is the responsibility of us to help grow ourselves, to seek out the development that we need to get to a place that we need? Like, are we depending on other people to tell us where to go, what to develop? It is one of the things I see a lot, where a lot of the sales folks that I manage or have managed over the years have been a couple of years out of college. And one of the things that they continuously wrestle with is that if you spend 4 years of your life, or up until that point, you've been told what to do, you've been told, how to go about it, what the confines, then you come out of that and now it's like, well, no one's telling you what to do, and no one's telling you what goal to go after, and no one's telling you what success looks like. And so you have to define all of this by yourselves. And I think this is such a crazy thing that not a lot of us think about, that in the real world, you get to define what is successful. You get to define what success looks like for you. You get to define how high you climb or where you can stop or not. Like, there's no one telling you like, this is what A looks like or not. Like, obviously there are standards, especially at work, but in life, you get to decide. And I often think it's a paradox of choices when and the world is your oyster, you're kind of like, you don't know. You don't know how to go about stuff. You don't know how to like go to the next level. So I think it's interesting, and something to think about. And so when I hear people say, "Hey, I feel like I didn't get, the coaching or development that I need," and specifically folks who are in, specifically folks who are in leadership. So the worst scenarios are usually the middle manager, because most of the senior leaders truly don't know how to develop people. And they usually got there from a point in time when they just continue to perform. And so I think there is a generation of people, not necessarily a generation, but we're now in a time when people are saying, I want people who will help me develop. It's no longer, they're no longer sitting down wanting development to happen on their own. Like they're hoping that there's some sort of development. And what they truly are looking for is a coach to help them to define their goals and work towards that. And then there's the other side of that is there's a lot of people who the question is, are you doing this for the company or are you doing it for yourself? And the trick answer is both, because at the end of the day, no matter how much you're doing it for the company, you can't, you can't like not focus on yourself, because and it comes in tandem. Like it's how do you focus on yourself? How do you focus on the company? And how does that all go together? Hey, Robert, how you doing, man? Thanks for checking out. Yeah, man, we're just having some conversations, and if you have any questions, let me know. But shout out to you. Um, I think there's just some stuff here where we're just talking. We started talking about brain rot. We're talking about coaching and management now, and just development. So especially if you're in senior leadership, whose responsibility is it to develop? And if you then come to a realization that your manager or the leaders above you can't give you the thing that you want, like how are you then thinking about going to get that thing for yourself? So we're just kicking it. There's a lot more here. I think I can go and go deeper, but let me know what you guys think. The other thing I was just playing around with, let me pull it up, because I actually think this is cool, funny. There's JLL, there's a commercial real estate. And can you believe it? They're like, oh, there's this article that was written, and it's like, why are we leaving the office earlier? And then the interesting thing is like, we're still showing up on time, but leaving earlier. And I just thought this was an interesting article. And the first thing I was just like, why are we tracking this? Let me see if I can pull it up for y'all and read through it, because I just thought it was honestly like, why? That was the first thing that came to my mind. Like, why are we doing this? It's a Wall Street Journal. It says why we're leaving the office earlier but still showing up on time. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know why this is a big deal, why we're thinking about this thing, and then why should we care? One of the things that I think we've often forgotten is that like there is the appearance of doing the work, and then there's doing the work. I will tell you some days like the 9 to 5 doesn't apply to me, because I'm constantly thinking about how can I get better, and can I continue to do stuff to a point. I'm not saying I'm great at it, where it's like I'm out with my friends, like the ideas then spark things that I need for work, or like it's the weekend and I'm constantly thinking about like ways that I can improve on work. So I don't think the traditional 9 to 5, especially in startups, I'll talk for startups. And I would say, as someone who is more constant on than not, I do have good routines to wind down. But honestly, I don't necessarily think about like the 9 to 5 or leaving work early. And then I think, yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is like, why are we tracking this? It just feels so crazy, right? Like that this is something that, this company is tracking, that they're basically saying like people in San Francisco are leaving work on average 26 minutes earlier than usual. In New York, at 13 minutes. Well, earlier than that we did in 2019. And sometimes we have to be careful, like the things that we're tracking, because come on, like, is this real? So I think it's interesting. Robert, shout out to you, man. Actually, one of the things that we're talking about is the next thing is up is this idea of like the job market. And the idea is that the labor market, a lot of people are talking about like the labor market expectations are low and people don't have confidence. There's a couple things, Robert, that I've thought or helped folks with is that, like, depending, let me just pull up, Robert. I'm not sure which school you go to, but I'd always say try and tap into your network. So once you have an idea of where you want to go into, I've often said, and this is for me personally, that there was a sacrifice. And I recall I left Jersey, and I was in Phoenix, and then I left Phoenix, go all the way to San Francisco with not a lot of money, but like there was this dream. The other thing is, like, how do you tap into your network? So depending on where you want to go, I do think that number one, you should be reaching out to folks in your network, and most likely or not, it's like people you either went to college with or went to your college and said, hey, I see that you're in this company. I'm interested in this. What can you do for me? Or like, can you help me to understand the industry? Can you help me to understand where that is? I often think about, like, Robert, that there's a lot of places, like we want to go places. The analogy here is that there's many roads to Rome. And so is it possible that you might take a step back? I'll use the example of you are trying to be in tech sales. Let's say you want to be in tech sales, because that's what I know right now. There's a lot of companies out there that they might not pay you a lot, and they might be a 3 to 5 person company that you have the opportunity to get in on the ground floor to show them that, like, not only could you do some free work, but you can go in and make some money and like learn, and people will take a bet on you. And so I often think like a lot of people want to be in tech sales and they want to come into a company that's established. But what happened to a 5 to 10 person company where it's very risky, but you have the opportunity to learn a lot? So that's one advice I would give, Robert, is that, like, think about where you want to go and think about if there are different ways to get there. An example for me is that, like, before I got into tech sales, I was an attorney recruiter. And so it was an adjacent way of learning some of the skill sets of what it might look like to be in sales and learning all of that stuff. And the other thing that I did was, like, I was actually like driving like the Uber and doing Uber delivery while I was training for the Olympics. And so while I was doing that, I was doing internships for free because I was trying to develop the skills that I needed so that I could pivot. So something to think about. But I would say definitely, Robert, try and tap into, if you have identify companies that you want to work at, see if there's anyone that went to your school. That's business. That's one way to think about it. Networking is good as well. But the other thing I often tell people is that, are there different options to get in at a lower place? And so what that means is, instead of, instead of trying to go like to the top, like maybe go to a early stage startup. So you mentioned, cool, you moved back to New Jersey. Interesting. Love that, man. Yeah, recruiting is the boss. New York City is good. Definitely there. But let's connect. I'll send you a DM and we can chat afterwards. So I think there's like definitely stuff like that, and like, how do you use your network, and then how do you build up to where you want to go, right? And I will say, and then one of the things I had here was this idea of, like, man, the labor market. The one of the news report that I was going to talk about was this idea of, like, the labor market is just not where people it is. Job confidence is pretty low right now. And we've seen it taking a dip. And I think there's several reasons for that. I think one of the number one reasons is, a lot of people are just like yourself, Robert, you can't get a job, but also the folks that do have a job, they're just uncertainty of, like, what will the economy look like in 3 to 6 months? We oftentimes say you always want to control what you can control. And so when things feel uncertain, there's oftentimes things we can't control around us. What about the things that we can control, the skills that we can develop, trusting that, if we have any savings, like, there's some stuff that we can do, because the idea is that we want to feel in control. So there might be lower level jobs that we can take in the meantime to stop a gap while we work to where we want to go to. And the thing that we don't often tell people is that you don't just, like, there's a lot of people that don't get to their desired goal just in time. I'm talking to my wife and I we're talking about this scenario where someone wants to go to med school and the money is just not there. And so, like, what are the different options? Like, your end goal might remain the same, but there are multiple different ways. So are there offshores, med schools you can go to? So that idea of, like, the end goal may not change, but the way that you want to go about it might differ. And so could you open up your eyes to that type of stuff? Something to think through. But yeah, I'll send you a DM right after, Robert, and we can catch up and chat. Let me just see. Yeah, so I'm gonna wrap up this one. I had a couple finds that I had this week. I want to shout out if you guys haven't one company that I came across this week that was like really cool. It's called Cinch, getcinch.com. Shout out to Daniel Ruiz. They just had a launch this week, and I thought it was really cool what they're doing over there with the AI powered. We call this like AI powered RevOps of sort. They're doing some really cool stuff on Salesforce. And one of the things that I'm personally excited about is like, you check out the tool, the idea is that like how you can automatically update your records. And the other thing that I've seen from them is you can create reports that are more natural language instead of, doing your filters. Like you can just create a report that was pretty cool. So that's one of my finds this week. One of my other finds is this company called Peel. So I think it's getpeel.ai. They're doing some really cool stuff with conversational AI and forms. So check them out, getpeel.ai. Really cool stuff. And then met a really cool dude this week. His name is Joe. Joe, shout out to you, Joe Petruzzi. He's with Organic Outreach, and they're doing some amazing stuff in the cold email space. So definitely check them out if you're just interested in how to set up your sending infrastructure in this day and age. I'm going to continue to wrap on some of these sessions. Hopefully y'all enjoy. Shout out to Robert. I'll connect with you afterwards. But definitely, you guys have an amazing weekend. I will see you soon.